But if, let's say, we get to a situation like the World Cup that's supposed to be in Qatar, there's talks of it going into winter. If we end up with a winter All Ireland, does that change things? Do Dublin and Kerry remain the teams most likely to win it, or all of a sudden does this help out Tyrone? We saw Tyrone play against Kerry in terrible weather there a couple of months ago, and they eked out a win. Obviously, Championship and League are very different anyway, just in terms of how dialed in you are for victory, in terms of putting everything into it. But would the conditions alone sort of turn things back towards someone like Tyrone, who of course also beat Dublin in terrible weather? Fintan, I'll start off with you.
Well, actually, one of the biggest things I was thinking wouldn't be the conditions, would be preparation. So, say, for example, a lot of teams have students and teachers. I mean, if it's a winter All Ireland, you imagine it's going to be far more difficult in terms of kind of training and all that. I mean, and Kerry talked about this a lot, that obviously it's one of the issues, economically and all that a lot of people kind of moving outside the county for work and for college. So, like, if you're Peter Keane's trying to prepare a team in November, December, imagine it's going to be a lot more difficult, isn't it? Because more guys are going to be based outside the county, whether it's in college or Cork or Limerick, and then obviously, teachers won't be off. So, I mean, would that work in kind of Dublin's favour? Like, the other thing I think as well is that what was the kind of question mark we were putting over Dublin this year was maybe a new manager appointed late, the difficulty in kind of bedding in, been on the go a long time. Last year's All Ireland went to a replay, and a lot of kind of miles on the clock. I think this, if it does come back again in kind of September, October, I think they're going to be very, very fresh. I think Dessie Farrell will kind of have time to maybe kind of plan and do different things. So I could see it kind of working in their favour.
Michael?
Yeah, just on Dessie, what Fintan says there would be very, very interesting. Because if it does come back, just saying we have 8 to 10 weeks of club action, it will be interesting for a really elite county like that particularly has so much at stake, whether those players will just be in contact with their club at that time, or whether there will be county going on as well, or whether there will be something put in place to make sure that they can't do that. I think that's quite important too, because otherwise it could undermine the club. So it'll be interesting to see, like, I know in a Kilkenny situation, we're just saying hurling, Cody's not going to interfere with the club, but possibly in football, some of the clubs could be interfered with. Particularly, I'm not, Dublin would be one that would come in my head, to be honest with you. You mentioned Tyrone. It's going to be a different type of football, ish, kind of. If the games are played in Croke Park, there will still be a certain type of a game. Yes, conditions won't be, it could be raining or it could be freezing or something like that, but in general the pitch is still going to play to a very, very high level. It's not the same as playing in Parnell Park in November or December. It's still going to be, the conditions are still going to be good. But Tyrone are one of those teams that seem to, I don't know, it's just I suppose the ferocity they're tackling, just how physical they are, how fit they are as well, and just with the handling is tougher in winter, things like that. They're just able to kind of grind you down a bit more. They'd definitely be one of the teams that would benefit. Interesting to hear what Fintan said about Dessie Farrell as well. While it's not contact time as we know it, it's not contact time on the field, we'll never know, but I'd love to know what they're doing behind the scenes. Up there, the standard bearers, when it comes in terms of preparation, I'd love to know what they're doing now, because chances are, given what they've done over the guts of the last decade, what they're doing now is probably superseding what everybody else is doing. It's probably on a different level again.
I would say that there'll be a fair public backlash with what Michael's saying there. If you've a club championship match going on in August, September, some county manager, pulls his players and that they're not allowed to be club training, I could imagine that will go down very, very badly, given everything that's going on now. So that will be kind of an issue for the GA, if Club GA comes back first, that it's actually kind of preserved and maybe kind of ring fence for that.
Who would you like to see push back on that? Let's say it happens that county manager X does that within his county and pulls the players away from the club. Who do you think should be kind of calling foul on this and making it a public issue? Is it the GPA? Is it the CPA? The GA themselves? I mean, who should do it, and who's even going to police it? Because if I was a club team, I'd like to be able to report it to somewhere essentially that this is happening and it needs to stop.
Normally, I would say you could argue this. I'd say it is probably going to be a GA issue, isn't it? To kind of and get county boards kind of in charge of it. Now, I know there's been talk in the past about trying to resolve the club county debate, and it's been issued that county boards aren't going to want to maybe police this successfully, aren't going to be successful in doing it. But I think these are pretty exceptional circumstances. So if club championship comes back for 6 to 8 weeks first, I think there would have to be some sort of a an agreement. You probably can't write a contract or anything like that. Like, but as in that basically that has to take precedent, all right? Because I just think that would. I think like it's a tough time for everyone. Like, and I think that would be a seriously kind of a damaging situation if after all of it, it's kind of a two fingers to the club game. When you come back at a time when it's meant to absolutely take precedent.
I'd be absolutely shocked if the county managers didn't do this, because even the April club month comes in, so this is supposed to be the dawn of everyone is operating off the one hymn sheet here. All managers are going to leave their players alone. But you see that some inter-county teams might finish up their league progress a little bit earlier in March, for example. So the club championship might actually start in that particular county at the very end of March, and then the county manager will be pushing to have all the club championship fixtures over by the middle of April, so that they therefore have the players from mid-April up until the start of their inter-county championship, let's say May 10th for Munster Hurling Championship, as an example. And they're actually even still trying to get games called off. I think this is happening across the board. We're not going to name any managers or players, but I'm sure plenty of our viewers have seen that as well. Michael, would you be in the same boat as me, thinking that managers are going to be very happy to try and contravene this and push as hard as they can just to get the players back as quick, even if it's once a week? Because even during club championship now, managers are still looking for the players a couple of times a week.
100%. I did a piece on the club month. I'm not too sure when it was, probably about 6 months ago. And the basis of the piece was actually the Wicklow hurling manager, Eamon Scallon, who made a proposal to the Wicklow County Board. It would have been November, December. They won the league. They won the Division 2B of the league and were beaten, I think, in the group stages of the Christie Ring. And he just said, basically, the club month was totally undermining his preparations for the championship. And basically, he was asking that they abolish the club month in Wicklow. So, like, that's Wicklow hurling. And with due respect to Wicklow, and I played with Wicklow for a year and a bit, that's Wicklow hurling. That's not Tipperary hurling or Dublin football. So if it's happening at that level, you can be damn sure it's happening at higher levels.
Like, unless people with a voice make a big issue out of this, I think it's just going to reign free. And I think this is where, there's a lot of people out there who are still unsure of the GPA, what they're about, their interests and stuff. I think if they kind of push this one hard, I think this could be an area. If they grasp that particular nettle, they could get a lot more people on side.
Yeah, and I think this is an opportunity for them to do that, in the sense that I understand what you're saying about Club One, but I think it's very difficult to kind of compare it to that from the point of view that you won't have had a situation leading into these club games where a player will have been playing with his county or training with his county for 3 months. The fact that this is a chance for meaningful games, you imagine most players would be delighted with that, would be really, really eager for it.
Players would, but the manager will still say, I want to work with my players collectively, do a block of training, work on tactics, whatever it will be.
Yeah, but given it's going to be kind of a one-off this year, and given that the structure could be changed, I wonder, will there be the same pressure on managers to perform? Like a lot of it comes back to managers coming in for kind of a short term, maybe eager to make their mark, under pressure from a county board, get us promoted or do this in a provincial championship, do that. You'd think that there will be a bit more allowances this year, wouldn't you? That like a team that goes out in the first round of, say, the Ulster Football Championship won't be as harshly judged or praised this year as they would in previous years.
Michael, jump in there.
Yeah, just I agree with Fintan. I think it's maybe it's not the best terminology to use, but I do think it's kind of a free pass for managers in some ways. Like, there's always going to be the excuses of whoever wins the All Ireland. It will be, geez, we really used the months off unbelievably well. We did this and this, or we did very little and I kept them fresh. And whoever doesn't succeed will be like, sure, that was a disaster. How are you supposed to prepare anyway? You know what I mean? So I think it'll be taken like that as a free pass. I would hope that a hard line is told on club players staying with their club. And I think the inter-county championships then, there'd be a fair element of surprise to them then as well. They maybe haven't been getting to do a load of tactical sessions on the field. Who knows how many weeks they'll have before the championship starts, if it does start. There'll be an element of surprise to it. There'll be mistakes being made, and it could make it even more interesting. The really well-polished teams maybe won't be as well-polished, and it will make it even more interesting and maybe even more chaotic than it has been in previous years.
I think we're naive if we're kind of thinking that county managers aren't going to try and run roughshod over the clubs here. Just to get back to the question we had, which is who would win a winter football All Ireland, and generally it's going to be a team in Division 1. That seems to be the way of it in football over the years. But the teams in Division 1 of the league this year, and I'll just go in order of their positions after after 5 games in 2020. So Galway are on top. Kerry, Tyrone, Dublin, Donegal, Monaghan, Mayo, and Meath were in there as well. Fintan, if you were to call a winter All-Ireland winner, who would it be?
I think Dublin. I just even like the preparation thing that I mentioned there. I do think that's a massive benefit for them. The majority of their players are based in the county. Like I think I could be saying. I think in the winter, kind of in the spring months of the league, I think Kerry could have up to 15, for example, based in Cork. There's some working full time. Then there's a lot in college. I mean, there'd be another consideration for this as well. Say, for example, you end up with a kind of a December All Ireland. A lot of players have college exams. Could be a pretty tricky time for them in terms of, trying to train for an All Ireland final, and then like you're back to back to kind of normal kind of college exams and that, so it just could be a lot kind of trickier for some counties than others. And I suppose I mentioned Dublin and Kerry because I think by common consensus before all this happened, they were like Dublin obviously at the front of the pack, and Kerry kind of best placed to challenge them. Mayo will obviously be another county as well that will be badly affected by that kind of travel thing. You'd imagine having to play in winter. I mean, you see it every spring. They all talk about the difficulties they have preparing during the league because so many of their players are based inside the county. And then during James Horan's first spell especially, things got back together when they were all kind of back in Mayo for the summer when the students were home. Look, obviously different circumstances, and it's going to be kind of a shorter period of time, so they might be able to work something out to kind of suit themselves. But yeah, I don't think you can kind of go against Dublin at this one, whether it's a winter, spring, summer, autumn, All Ireland at the moment.
Yeah, and even Nicky Brennan, former GA president, former Kilkenny player and manager, he suffered recently with COVID-19, had a tough old time of it, but thankfully he's getting a bit better. But he talked about the minimal chances of inter-county coming back, and then you even think of how many players are going to opt out for a period of time. Now, we don't know what will happen in terms of breakthroughs, antivirals, whatever it might be. So, but there might be a certain amount of players that opt out, and if a couple of core guys opt out of any team, they could potentially go from being a contender to being out of the picture. But otherwise, Michael Verney, who do you think is most likely to win this All Ireland in winter?
Again, just what you said there, like Dublin could afford to have somebody to opt out. Some of the like the Monaghan's couldn't afford to have, a Carol O'Connell or a Niall Kearns or someone like that opt out. So chances are the team that has the greater strength in depth, the Dublins of this world, are probably still going to be favoured in that sort of a scenario. I think so. I think a team like a Monaghan could go well, though. A team that's kind of very together and capable of beating anyone in a once-off type of game. I think a knockout format could suit someone like them. And I just think, wouldn't it be unbelievable to be celebrating an All-Ireland at Christmas time? Jeez, it'd be unbelievable.
We'll get your thoughts. I'm going to go with Dublin myself. I just think too much strength in that power physically. I think they'll bully most teams at any time of the year, and I don't see that changing too much. Your final clue then for the Who Am I?
Yeah, just a couple little quick social media things coming in there. Brian Brophy, we were talking about things you miss in the GA, putting your child over the turnstiles. Like, literally, that will resonate with probably 3/4 of the Irish population, I would say. But whether it was a father or mother lifting you over the turnstile, or you were the one actually, or you the one that has done it yourself. It's that's kind of so commonplace in the GA, or was so commonplace. My